Welcome to this comprehensive tutorial on creating a 3D tower building game using Java. I'm excited to guide you through the entire process from start to finish. By the end of this tutorial, you will have a fully functional game that you can build upon. Let's get started. Before we dive into coding, let's outline the main concepts and tools we'll use. We'll be working with Java and a 3D game library called JMonkey Engine, which is powerful and user-friendly. Make sure to have Java JDK installed and JMonkey Engine downloaded. First, let's set up our development environment. Install an IDE, I recommend IntelliJ IDEA, and configure it for Java development. After installing JMonkey Engine, create a new project. In IntelliJ, you can do this by selecting New Project and choosing the JMonkey Engine template. Once you have your project set up, navigate to the project directory and find the main.java file created for you. This will serve as the entry point for our game. Let's begin by importing necessary packages. Next, we'll extend the Simple Application class. This is the base class of our game. Let's override the SimpleInitApp method to set up our initial game environment. Inside this SimpleInitApp method, we'll set up our scenes and controls. Let's create a simple tower block using a box shape. We'll also create a new geometry object to represent the block. Now we need to attach our geometry to the root node so it can be rendered. We'll set the position of our tower block to the center of the scene. Next, let's improve the camera perspective to make the game more engaging. We want a better view of our tower building. Here, we can adjust camera settings such as position and direction. Now that we have the basics set up, we'll add controls for player interaction. We want the player to be able to place blocks where they click on the screen. To do this, we must create a method that handles mouse click events. Next, we need to implement the onAction method that responds to the player's clicks. This method will calculate where the player clicked and place a new block in that position. Inside our onAction method, let's implement raycasting to determine where the player has clicked and position the new block accordingly. We will create a ray from the camera through the clicked position. Now we can cast the ray. We will check for intersections with the ground and place the block accordingly. For simplicity, let's use a constant height for each block and place it directly above the intersected point. Next, let's create the placeBlock method. This method will be responsible for instantiating a new block at the hit point calculated from the raycast. We'll use the same box setup we used before. Now let's take a moment to test what we've created so far. Run your application and try clicking around to place blocks. You should see new cubes stacking up wherever you click, forming a tower. Great! The next feature we want to add is a way for players to rotate and move the camera to enhance their building experience. We can use mouse movement to provide a better view from different angles. In the above code, we've implemented basic camera movement to the left and right using the E and D keys. You can extend this to include moving forward and backward, or even implementing mouse dragging for camera rotation. Now with the ability to move our camera, we can more easily navigate around our building. Make sure to test this behavior by running your game. Adjust the rotation speed for smoothness. Next, let's add a feature to create a game end condition. For instance, if the player's tower exceeds a certain height, we can trigger a win or lose state. First, we'll define the height limit. Now, in our placeBlock method, we will check the height every time a new block is added. Allowing for gameplay feedback will make the game more interactive. So let's create a simple UI that alerts the player when they win or lose. JMonkey Engine has UI capabilities via Scene GUI. We will need to create a new spatial for the UI text. In the SimpleInitApp method, we will initialize our font and create text nodes. To display messages on the screen, we'll utilize bitmap font and GUI text. Now, when the game ends, we can update the GUI text to notify the player. This will give instant feedback on the game state. Modify the game over condition to update the text. Now that we've implemented game conditions and feedback, it's time to add a restart or reset feature. We want players to be able to rebuild after a game ends. We will create a reset method that clears the game objects and resets the height. To respond to a reset command, let's check for a specific key input, say R, to reset the game. Now you can test the complete functionality of your game. Run your tower building game, place the blocks, and if the tower becomes too tall, you should see your game over message. Press R to start over. At this point, we have a basic version of our 3D tower building game. Now, you can extend the game further by adding more elements. For example, different colored blocks, a time limit, or a scoring system. Think creatively. In this section, I'll introduce how to add sound effects to make your game more immersive. Sound can enhance the player experience significantly. JMonkey Engine supports several audio formats, so let's add a sound effect when a block is placed. Now, in the placeBlock method, we will call the sound node whenever a block is successfully placed. You're now well on your way to making a more polished and engaging game. Remember, little things like sound design can make a big difference. Now let's focus on some optimizations and best practices. Having many objects attached to the root node can lead to performance issues. Grouping blocks into a single node can not only improve performance but also manage positioning more effectively. You can create a new node for your tower and attach blocks to that. Now you have a structured codebase that is more efficient and easier to manage. Continue refactoring as you add features. Let's save and document our progress. Good comments and documentation will lead to better collaboration if you ever work with a team or share your project. Finally, let's make sure to maintain a version control system. Use Git to keep track of changes, which will be essential as your project grows in complexity. In conclusion, you've successfully created a 3D tower building game in Java using JMonkey Engine. This project is a solid foundation that you can keep building upon. Consider adding features like textures, backgrounds, and even networking for multiplayer functionality later on. Thank you for joining me in this coding adventure. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Happy coding!